wall of the meeting room, accessible to members of the public. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I move that the Board of Education of District 15 approve the agenda as presented.
A second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And BJ did text me, he's
Okay.
been on call, so.
First up is Dr. Nielsen talking about the handbooks.
Okay, good evening. You have the handbooks in front of you. They are printed, and I have two individuals. If you guys want to come on down, we'll talk about the student handbook first. And I know that you probably have spent hours and hours just going over this handbook and enjoying it. But, you know, it was fun this year.
Please say that louder, Janet.
I will not.
Oh.
We said we asked for it.
We asked for a new picture, yes. We, that might be something that we're still working on getting updated. Notice.
I think it's a good picture.
I think it's a good picture too, it just doesn't look like it.
Maybe from like, I don't know, a few years ago.
Hello, I'd like to get out of here before 10.
Okay, so
Think the old one's getting wrinkled?
the K through 12 handbook, what we have done is we've created a consistent document that takes all of the district practices that we are abiding by, and we want to make sure that they are consistent. Across the board, PK through 12 pushes it to the front, and then adds addendums for the preschool, for the elementary, for the middle school, and for the high school in the back. This has been a fantastic endeavor, because it's really opened up a lot of great conversations about what we currently are doing and what we need to do, just to make sure we align our efforts. That is one of the things that we are really trying to work on as we move forward, especially if you look at strategy 4 and 5, with strategic plan, it's all about our systems and making sure our systems align. And this is the first foundational system that we have in our district, is really our student handbook. So there are a couple things that I want to talk to you about district-wide, and then I'm going to turn it over to them, and I will be sharing about the middle school, because Mr. Stengel or Mr. Hakey were not able to make it tonight. One of the things, and this may make your head itch, but one of the things that we have changed is our lice practices. So normally, we have said, if you have nits, you're going home. So no nits has been our policy. That is very outdated. The CDC does not recommend it. There are many districts around the state, around the nation. They don't do that. Because a nit in my hair is not going to jump to Missy's hair. Most of the time, even if you treat it, you may still have the residue of a couple dead nits in your hair. And so, you know, when we come back and check, if we would even see that, we would send the child home. But what does that do? That they're at home, they aren't at school, so they aren't learning, they are not getting the education that they need. So what we are doing is we are going to a live lice policy to where the lice has to be live. We're asking the parents to treat the hair, and then when they bring the child back, we will check again, and then we will recheck, we will reevaluate within a couple days, within basically 3 to 5 days after that, just to make sure that that lice is gone from their hair. So we will continue to follow up with it, but it is a very old practice that we've had in our district, and so we are moving away from that practice. The other piece that we have talked about as a district, and we had a secretary's meeting and we talked about our attendance practices. Because what we want to do is we want to make sure that if I am marked excused here, that I'm marked excused there because it's for the same reason. So for example, we had a student that was at a funeral, or family was at a funeral. At one school it was unexcused, or one school was excused. We've had students that have been on vacation. One school was excused, one school it was unexcused. So we brought together the team and said, okay, here's how we're going to operate with our attendance practices across the board. It has been nice to really have conversations, and we've been able to do it this summer. We've had a little bit of time in between everything else and been able to focus on this and work on that piece. So those are the major changes that come out. The other major change that you will see is page 48. Is where we are aligning our student code of conduct. And we've always had a code of conduct for everyone. However, it hasn't necessarily been printed in the preschool or the elementary handbooks. It's really been in the middle school, high school. So we are making sure that these are in everyone's handbook. And it really talks about level 1, where that is mostly dealt with by the teacher. Mostly dealt with in the classroom, mostly dealt with, you know, if it becomes an issue, then it moves up to level 2, 3, or 4. So the other nice thing is, in Infinite Campus, they have reporting mechanisms, so these numbers match up with the Infinite Campus numbers. So when we do our state reporting, it matches directly with what we're reporting to the state. The other thing is we have to do a civil rights data collection for the CDC, or for the CRDC. And so there are pieces in here that will help us. For example, if you look at page 51, notice that our bullying and harassment is really getting more in depth as to what is the bullying and harassment, what is it targeting. So those codes will help us define and be able to look at where do maybe more issues lie. So if we're going deeper, it's not just bullying and harassment, but it really is targeting racial, it's racism. It might be sexism. So those are things that we'll be able to look at a little bit deeper, just to help us continue to build our systems and put things in place to help our students know the expectations of the district. So moving on to the preschool.
I want to say how awesome I think it is to have one handbook, and we all sat down and we talked through things, which was a great benefit for, I think, people that are new in roles and starting new schools to really understand and align practices. So that was great. Preschool, we really did not change anything in here. I'm not sure if I did end up putting, I didn't, but I think what I need to do, and I didn't get it done, we're going to put a cell phone or an electronic device in here too. Oh, I did put the electronic device. Elementary and preschool, we are just going, if it comes to school, it's going to the office, parent has to pick up, done. So we're not going to do multiple players. We did have a 3-year-old bring a cell phone to preschool this year, and parents called to make sure that he was okay. So it was an issue, we had to deal with it, this is how we're dealing with it, just done. So that would be the elementary part, or the preschool part. Elementary part, again, we looked at what our day looks like in the new elementary school. So the curriculum part, we just kind of said, our goal in the elementary is to work on that tier 1 of both instruction and behavior. So on page 67, we talked about what that tier 1 of instruction is going to look like, what all children need to have. So just like language arts, 60 minutes of core instruction, that does not mean they're only getting 60 minutes of literacy instruction. That means they're going to get 60 minutes of literacy instruction at grade level. So every child, whether your child is a 2nd grader and is at 5th grade level, or you're a 2nd grader and you're at a kindergarten level, you're getting grade level instruction, because what are they tested on? Grade level instruction. So they have to have access to those materials. And then their intervention and remediation will be done at different parts of the day. But all children will get that time. The same with math, social studies and science, and then we've talked about the intervention time that we're adding across the board for all kids. So that's there, and we included art because that will be a new one that we had this year. We delved more into the behavior, and so that is on here. Tried very hard to mirror high school, middle school, and do that in the elementary, because kids are in our system, so they need to know the systems. So a little simpler, a little easier, but still the basis of what everyone's doing. Be safe, be responsible, be respectful. We added be kind because that's so important for little kids. It's just for everyone, but to really have that being kind. So that's, and we also added the Pediatric Education Foundation, educational foundation. We need to fix that because BLAST is part of our program. So that's the changes that we have for there.
Okay, so for the middle school, on page 79, when you look at the electronic devices, our previous handbook stated electronic devices need to be off and in lockers from 7:45 to 3:12. We've adjusted that time to reflect the change in the school day for 24-25. So it really reads 7:45 to 3:45. And when students walk into the gym, those cell phones have to be put away or they will be taken. And that is one thing the students know or they quickly find out. So they are not very happy when it's taken. Page 80, arriving to BMS, similarly with the change of start times, we need to adjust the start of our supervision. Supervision will not begin until 8:05, and previously it was 7:45. And then on page 81, for the house system, they added a brief overview of the purpose of our house system. So those are the major tweaks that the middle school had for their handbook.
For high school, we didn't have a lot of major changes. The one really big change is the cell phone procedure, which we've talked about at previous meetings. We changed, after talking with the administrators, we changed the tardy consequence a little bit to make it more manageable, so we can actually give we can give consequences that we can follow up on, and be more consistent with that, because we have identified that as something we want to clean up at the high school. And just to add a little fun one, in the parking lot, I added a line that referenced the senior painted spots are reserved, so other people can't park there during the school day. Other than that, we didn't have a lot of changes, since everything just kind of moved to the district piece of things.
Any questions about the handbook that you have noticed, or, and I will tell you, if you find grammatical things or typos, or there are some places where the font is different, and that would be on the expectations, but for the most part, I tried to keep the font the same throughout the book, but on the expectations at the middle school and at the elementary, it is different. I could go back and make that the same font if you would like me to. I was, yes, working with tables and working with fonts is not always the most enjoyable thing to do in Google.
And these will all be online, so parents are gonna get digital, we're not killing 197 trees doing this, so they'll get digital copies of it.
You know, things like formatting, inconsistencies going through there, not just typos, but how much detail are you interested in actually getting in here?
If
Because I
you-
know it's terribly time consuming.
Yes, if you get it to me, I will look to see what I can do. There were some places where I couldn't fix the formatting. It was,
Yeah.
I tried.
We kinda had a template and
Yes,
changed it. And what
We
they-
did. We borrowed another handbook from another district because it's very nice to borrow things from other places. And so we were working with theirs, and there were some places that I need to figure out whether I just need to download it into Word and do it in Word, because I might need to do that.
So
Yeah.
go
So,
ahead,
yeah, if
make the
you-
adjustments, offer
If you
it.
make adjustments and get a hard copy to me, that would be fantastic. Yes. Okay, perfect. Any other questions or thoughts about the K-12 handbook?
And you want to get this out by the time that school starts, so you're going to generate a whole bunch of paper copies for all the students, or how?
We are doing it
How much is
electronically.
electronic?
So it will not be, so one of the processes that we are trying to do is we're trying to move more electronic with a lot of our paperwork, especially at the beginning of the year. Beginning of the year, parents, you know that you receive packets, and packets one just to fill out, to sign. We're going to do that mostly, say, hopefully 90% of that will be done through Infinite Campus. So parents will go on, they'll look at what their census information is, verify all of that, and then they will go in and verify the forms in there. They will also have access to the handbook that they can download and keep at their fingertips. Yep. Perfect. Okay, so then moving on to the classified staff handbook. So there are some general items that were updated, some dates and some policy references, just to make sure that we have the correct dates and we have the correct policy numbers. On page 4, we are removing a section on personal leave because this was not updated, so this needed to be updated based upon, this was oops, we didn't catch this last year, so we're updating it this year. Page 4, letter B, it said paid time off, so we are adding PTO for employees who have paid sick leave but did not accrue vacation time. This leave is not cumulative. So that really, as we look at the classified, that focuses on PTO. and hourly, and this is for employees who are scheduled less than 12 months and have been paid sick leave but do not accrue vacation time will be provided with 16 hours of paid time off leave per school year. This leave time is not cumulative.
So just if I can jump in here
Yep.
a minute. In the past few years, as we've seen, we've tried to come up with different incentives to continue to recruit and retain staff and make Beatrice Public Schools as competitive as we can with all the other entities around us, including other schools. And this was one of the things that we have added in for this year to try and create a benefit where there wasn't one before. And so for our classified staff who are scheduled less than 12 months out of the year, so they're 9 or 10-month employees, and typically if we have a snow day, or if we have a release for a state tournament, or whatever the case may be, those people don't get paid for that day. And so this is a benefit where they would have up to their scheduled amount of hours per day, up to 16 or 2 8-hour days of paid time off per year to use towards that in the event. And we'd either cancel for a state tournament, we would have a snow day, they would be able to use that. So it's really, that was the purpose behind why we changed it, is to try and create an added benefit for those staff members that really, they don't accrue vacation time, they just don't have it in it. We thought this is easy to track, it works, and it's giving a benefit that we haven't. The bereavement leave, we, through the negotiation process, the negotiations team established a new bereavement leave process for the certificated staff, and quite honestly, just speaking from experience, I just think it's a great practice to include for all of our staff. So we put that into that same bereavement leave language will be in for classified staff as well. And you can read it and go through it. And that, it's also what's in the certificated handbook, so that was pretty easy.
School cancellations is the next part. Added this for employees that do not earn paid sick leave. So as you look at that part, in the event of a full day school cancellation, a classified employee who does not earn paid sick leave will be paid a full day of their scheduled hours. The maximum number of hours paid per school year is 2. The maximum number of days, paid days per school year is 2. And then page 10 is, there was some wordsmithing in sections that dealt with coffee breaks and lunch breaks, just to make sure that we provided clarity where clarity needed to occur. So that is the classified staff handbook.
Page 10 will probably change again in the very near future because we just got an email from legal counsel today that the Fair Labor Standards Act is changing. So we will have to change again next year. Okay.
So the certificated staff handbook, there were just some general items in here that needed to be updated, some dates and some policy references. Overall, this did not change very much. But you can see all handbooks have the red, or these 3 handbooks have the red line copy, so you can see where we had to make adjustments. The substitute handbook is, if you look at there, again, general items, dates, and some policy references, but if you go to page 7, we did update the start and end times for each site based upon the new start and end times for this year, so that was one of the things that we have updated in the substitute handbook. And then on page 21, we added an attendance incentive. Because again, we know as we look at substitutes, it is becoming harder and harder to find substitutes, and districts are competing and tending to pay more, and we're all adding $5, $10 every year just so we can try to keep substitutes. So at the conclusion of each semester, substitutes that have completed 35 full days of substituting for the district will receive the following attendance incentive stipend. Substitute teacher will receive $100, a substitute para will receive $50.
We thought you might be interested in some statistics in relationship to that. So this past year, in terms of dollars, we would have had that, the teacher substitute portion for the first semester would cost us $500, and the second semester would have cost us $700, so that's how many teachers we had that would have met that benchmark. And para subs would have cost us $300 the first semester and $200 the second semester. So when we went back and ran the statistics, the total expense for this type of incentive was $1,700 total, which, you know, it's just another way to try and get people in the door and thank them, and not be a huge expense, but give a little incentive for being a substitute here at Beatrice Public Schools. We will bring back substitute pay to you at the July board meeting. We've kind of kicked around a number, but we would like to have a little more time just to talk to some other districts to see what they're gonna be before we finalize that.
So do you have many substitutes who do more than 35 days?
Yes, we do. The one thing though that substitute has to look at is that if they are a local substitute, they cannot exceed 90 unless we make sure that we apply for a waiver or they have a conditional permit, or some type of permit that we can get otherwise. But we have, when I did the report this year, we have subs that are 180 days and then couldn't get 180 days, but you know, a lot, 170 days, there we go. We have substitutes that are consistent and they are here all the time. So we do have a lot of subs that exceed that 35.
Do they get any additional appreciation?
If they are subbing for so if I do a long-term sub, then I end up getting a higher rate.
Okay.
There are some things that I know that Jason, you guys are looking at.
There's-
Conversations being had, because there's a lot of things districts are doing, and there are things that we can look at as well.
One of the things that other districts are doing is they're paying for either the human relations course that's required to if you don't have the proper training. Some districts are paying for that. Some districts are helping pay for the actual certificate application through the NDE. And we figured that's not a heck of a lot different than just offering a stipend. So we figured that's what they want to use it for, great. If they want to take the $100 and go buy a new pair of shoes, that's great too. It just gives them more flexibility in choice.
Okay. That's a great segue to my question. How is that going to be paid?
Through payroll with taxes taken out.
I think,
Right, or is it a,
well, Jackie and I did
You know,
talk.
by the
No,
time
we
you
need
give
to
somebody
talk about that.
$50 and you take all the deductions out of there,
should they have 30?
if that, yeah. I didn't know if there was a way around that, we can just look at the chamber bucks, you know, chamber bucks or something where they get the full.
We can sure look
benefit
at
of that.
different ways.
I just think, you know, $50 and you take taxes out and you get 25 of it, I mean. I don't know.
A lot of times, if we call it a stipend, we can get around that. So, and Jackie Blomeyer and I did have that conversation.
Okay.
I just can't remember where we landed, so, but we can look at options.
I just assumed that we're gonna give them a stipend, but they get the
And
full
we're-
stipend.
And we're doing well getting substitutes, that's
You
an
know,
issue.
I'm gonna say it's not perfect. We survived the year. A lot of times we have teachers who, we have to put extra kids in classes and divide them up. So, and it's just, yeah, the pool, when I first came here 6 years ago, was upwards of 70 subs available. Now we're in the 20 to 30.
So providing incentive is a good idea.
Yep, good questions.
Perfect, so as you look at the handbooks, if you have any other questions or thoughts, please just reach out and we will get them answered, and they will be on the agenda to approve in July at the board meeting. am
Thank
finished.
you. Now we're moving on to policy updates, Mr. Alexander.
Okay, so I will try in an effort to respect your time. I'm going to cover these fairly quickly so you know the background as to why these policies updates are being advised and or required. So there's a couple in here that are recommended, and other schools are using them. And the rest of them are pretty much required as a result of legislation this past season. So if I am going too fast, or if you have a question about something, jump in and stop me. But I do want to, these policies, as you know, from year to year, they come to us from legal counsel. Anything that has a certain Beatrice flavor to it, we make sure and review that and cross-reference and so forth. Most of these policies this year, I'll just be quite honest with you, we didn't have to do a lot of that because they're just what's required by law from the legislative session. So, all right, jumping in real quick, and I will tell you that the order that they're on in the agenda is not necessarily the same order as what they are on in your summary. So we're going to start with 4.2, which is 1102, policy 1102, recording of others. This would be a new recommended policy for you to consider. And basically what it does is just outline the recording of other people and how we handle that as a district. And it applies to cell phone recording with video, it applies to cell phone recording or voice recorder recordings, it applies to the whole thing. Typically, in the past, it's been long believed that recording conversations is allowed in the state of Nebraska since we are a one-party consent state. However, schools do have the right to have consequences for parents that record conversations. Without informing teachers or administrators, they are recording. So what this does, this particular policy does, and again, read through it, if you have questions, reach out, but it helps protect our students, our parents, our staff, ensures privacy and confidentiality of all situations regarding recordings. So that's one that's recommended. Again, no law about this changed as a result of the legislative session, but we recommend it. So we are going to jump back up now to 1050, which is a result of access to records, LB 43. It significantly altered the Nebraska's public records laws. Nebraska residents are now entitled to the first 8 hours of staff time spent responding to the public records requests from now on is free. It's free time. Basically, this impacts me more than it does anybody. If we get a public records request, I'm the one that handles that. Typically, it depends on how big the request is. We have always been able to charge for my time, a company that makes a request or an individual that makes a request. Now, the first 4 hours of that time are free. 8 hours, excuse me. So it's just one of those things where it's a new law. We have to abide by it. So that's why the policy's.
Well, I would have to say it's a good thing. I'll go on record and say I think it's a good thing, because places were turning down requests by media for important information. So while there could have been abuses, I also think there's a reason why it had to be made into a law, because people were turning it down when they should have honored their request.
Yeah, and I think that applies to all public entities, not just, when you say places, not just schools, but, yeah, so.
It was, because it's all because of that Flatwater Free Press thing,
It is.
where they,
Yep. So the next one is policy 3130, purchasing policy. It's item number 4 on the summary. Again, just imposes a new conflict of interest obligations on public employees after a situation where a city employee apparently entered into a contract with family members' business. The legislature imposed more stringent requirements on public employees. So as a result of LB 287, we implement policy or make changes to policy 3130 on purchase. So you can take a look at that as well. Moving right along, policy 3140, contracting for services, very similar in nature. It is on page 2 of the summary. As a result of LD 1300 imposes requirements on public bodies to ensure that no technology contracts are awarded to any scrutinized company. These requirements that apply to any covered each school will need to ensure that this certification will be incorporated into future technology agreements. So this almost is really more about cybersecurity than it is anything. But again, a result of LD 1300.
What is the definition of a scrutinized company?
That is a great question. I think it's a company that has, or has been open to some type of investigation in the past.
Yeah, I could infer that from
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah. 3571, meal charge, basically as a result, and you heard about this on the news, you've heard me talk about it a time or two, prohibit schools from using a debt collection agency or collecting interest or fees from outstanding school lunch debt. So no longer can we turn needy families or parents over to debt collection services, which, to be honest with you, the past couple of years we haven't done that because we've had great community support in helping pay for these things. 3140, contracting for services.
Sorry,
Let's see.
where,
Yeah, we went over that one already.
Yeah.
Oh, I
New
missed,
teacher
yeah,
training,
teacher training, all right.
4141.
Do you want to handle this one, Dr.?
Yeah.
Talk about it.
Yes. So as we look at this policy, one of the things that we have to do is the board has to approve the amount of hours spent in staff development. And so you are provided all of the hours that are spent in staff development, and you have to just give your blessing that they are reasonable in the trainings. If you turn to the resolution, this is the resolution that we are providing because we want to show everyone the number of trainings that our staff members have to go through. So if you can see, all of them, there's the subject, what is it about, who's it required by, what's the sorts of training, what's the approximate length of training, and the other thing is I put down specifically who we're targeting. Some of them may change. That behavioral awareness is right now admin and counselors. That will change to all staff in the following year because of legislation. So, and it may not be the psychological first aid training that we will do. We will probably pick up something else for all staff and still require the admin and counselors to do the psychological first aid. You can see that through most of them, and we are making a couple changes with some of our pieces, but bloodborne pathogens, really the insurance company recommends that we do bloodborne pathogens. We normally do it every year. We are going to give our teachers a break. And they are going to be very excited because most of them know it by heart at this moment. So, it would be nice to just give them a break. And what we're looking at is all new staff will do it, but we will do it once every 3 years. So we'll just do that recheck. MANT training is required. It's Beatrice Public Schools policy. Brook Valley behavioral training is Beatrice Public Schools required, and then the project para to ensure high-quality para-educators as defined by ESSA. So those are the pieces that those last 4 are the ones that we require. The others are all state mandated.
and the MAT? Definition?
MANT is state, or is Beatrice Public Schools policy.
Okay, what's the acronym for?
MANT it's restraint and seclusion training, so it really is focused on the behavioral side of things, and how to de-escalate situations, so we don't end up in using restraint and seclusion, because that is our last resort, so,
It talks about the cycle of where kids go, and it gives you strategies on how to do it. And then if if those don't work, it's how to properly and safely help children go to a spot where they are safe and the people around them are safe.
Good, good.
So that is that
And
policy.
I don't think MANT stands for anything, I think that's just the name of the company, but I'll look it up and see for sure.
I was just-
It's the system, it doesn't stand for.
It's the system, it doesn't, okay. So if you have any questions regarding specific trainings, please reach out and I will answer them. Option enrollment is next, right?
Yep, okay, option enrollment policy number 5006. This, as a result of LB 1029, changed aspects of Nebraska's option enrollment program. Essentially, it used to be that you had a one-time option, that you could change schools option. Now it's changed that you have 3 times, and, but you can do it once in elementary, once in middle school, once in high school. Most schools in Nebraska were already operating that way anyway, so this really wasn't that big of a legal change, but nonetheless, it's been required to be put in policy. The other part about this policy is that you have 2 options, and if you look at policy 5006 that's in front of you, we left those 2 options in there for you, and I'll be glad to cover them with you in depth if you'd like to. But basically, you see, it says choose one or modify as desired, down there below letter E on that policy 5006. Option 1 is that you grant the release unless expulsion is pending. Option 2 has that same language in it, but it also has some other options, some other requirements in there. So a request for release or release of student meets all the criteria in option 2. Or they have a reason for opting in regards to requesting their option. So there's a kindergarten requirement, a sibling requirement, or a sibling portion of it, educational program, or no pending expulsion. My recommendation to you would be to go with option 2 because it covers everything.
First page, there's also 2 options, right?
Yes, and on the first page, there's also 2 options. And I would recommend going with,
Option 1 is labor unless at capacity.
yep, option,
2 is the limited.
yep. Option 1 is waiver unless at capacity, so basically, it's just stating that if we're at capacity, we may not accept that waiver. Option 2, again, if you look down at item number 3, has the same language in it as well. So I would say, in order to make sure you cover, it has a limited deadline waiver along with siblings, kindergarten, and release approval. Option number 2 just covers everything that would come into play. So I'd recommend option 2 only. Thank you. All right.
You want me to do that one?
Sure.
Okay, so on student attendance on policy 5008, one of the things that they did was they just added the mental health as well as physical health. So we know that there are appointments that our students attend because of something that they need to work through. And so whether it's illness or whether it's mental health, they wanted to make sure that that was added and that was noted. So that is an excused absence. So that is the biggest change that, and we have made sure that it is in our handbook the same way it is in here. So we have made sure of that.
5101 is back on the front page of the summary, and it's a required policy as a result of LB 43. It's under student discipline, but basically it just grants students the ability to practice their religious or tribal cultural rights within the respective times of the school day. And then also says that students that may have requests to wear special tribal regalia or cultural regalia at graduation can be granted that. Again, I felt I was really, this policy, this requirement really doesn't change a lot for us because we were already doing that. We already had that policy in place.
We don't have to make changes to that policy we put in place last year.
Nope. And the only real change that we had to make in it was that to recognize the religious practices if necessary. Okay. Let's see, that moves us along to random drug testing. We're gonna skip that one and come back to it, so we can keep moving. Promotion and retention, 5201. This policy is number 6 on the summary, so it's at the top of the second page. Interesting, this is a result of LB 71. It allows a parent or guardian to require their student to retake a grade level if the parent or guardian satisfies the requirements outlined in the new law. So to comply with these new requirements, policy 5201 has been updated, and this is a little bit scary because we want to respect parents' wishes, and we want to formulate good relationships with parents. But we also need to make sure that if parents come in and request that their child be held back, it's for the right reasons. And we all have to be on the same page about that. So 5201 does a nice job of explaining that and meets the law, but for students in grades. So the question is, can a parent require their student be retained in the same grade during the 24-25 school year? This won't take effect until the 25-26 school year because the law goes into effect July 19th. A parent can't come in right now and say, I want to hold my child back from last year. So that was a little bit of clarification that had to be cleared up. For students in grades K through 4, a parent may require their student take a grade level if the student meets one of the following qualifications: academic needs, illness, or excessive absenteeism. So those are the 3 kind of key areas that a parent can come in and say, my child missed 3/4 of the school year, I'd like to have them repeat that grade level. Then we're going to sit down, we're going to talk about that, we're going to have a meeting, and we're going to look at all the factors. Okay? That's grades K through 4. Students in grades 5 through 12 may only be retained by the parent due to excessive absenteeism. So it is a little bit more restrictive in terms of what they can make that request for, depending upon the grade level. And it doesn't go into effect until 2025-26.
There's been some research, some results on whether retaining students is a good idea or poor idea. Just wondering if you have a collection of that research, anything to share with parents and teachers so they have more to go.
We utilize the lights retention scale right now, and so teachers complete it, and it is a scale that goes through and it says, okay, your child is a perfect candidate for retention, or your child is not at all a candidate for retention. And most of the time when teachers fill it out, lately it's always been in the middle where it's been 50%. So I said, are we flipping a coin and taking those chances, you know, and as a leader of the district, I'm not willing to take a 50% chance that a child will improve this year, or they may not improve this year. We may see adverse, because you're right, retention does not always have great results. And so we will still use that as part of this process. It'll just be part of a team meeting. The other question I asked the state was, when we look at 9 through 12, if we retain a child, is that going to now impact our graduation rate? Because that's the other part that I want to know is, so parents want to keep them as a 9th grader, but they started last year as a 9th grader, they are cohort 2025. And so are they, by doing that, are we going to be able to change that cohort? I would assume the answer is no. But so then that will have, everything impacts graduation rate anymore. So, you know, it's one of those things that may impact that too.
Get that.
If,
Don't you move up to the sophomore level based on how many hours you earn? You don't get retained. Because you have to retake the classes.
I know, but you have parents have the option to retain their kids in 9 through 12 in this new legislation. So,
Only for excessive absences.
only for excessive absenteeism,
Well, if
so they
don't have the
probably do
credit,
not
they're already
have the credit.
automatically retained, aren't they?
They are, but their cohort stays, well, they aren't retained.
I know, but.
Their cohort stays the same.
It sounds like a semantics question.
It is.
It is,
Okay, thank you.
but it's a very important question for reporting purposes.
Okay, what if their excessive absenteeism is due to illness?
We provide homebound services, and so if it is
That's what
illness
it's like.
related, that's where usually special education or homebound services kick in to where we would provide those pieces.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the excessive absenteeism would probably be more so aligned with truancy,
Right.
is what I would see. Or maybe mental, I mean, I don't know, mental health, we would still provide as many services as we possibly could. So it would be more so that truancy that it would be looking at.
And sometimes the 504 plan is involved in that as well.
Absolutely. Graduation requirements is next.
So, if you recall, a few years back, and I can't even tell you exactly when, there was legislation passed that required every graduating student to fill out the FAFSA form for federal aid. I think now we've come along, which we tried to explain at the beginning of that discussion, that some people don't want to fill out the FAFSA for various reasons. Maybe they know they're not going to qualify, they don't want the federal aid, their student's not going to college. So now, coming back a couple years later, it's changed to where the principal can allow the student not to fill out the FAFSA. In a nutshell, that's kind of the requirement that is changed, is that the student doesn't have to fill out the FAFSA.
And we'll make sure it's added to our policy, because this one looks like this is from, this says 220.
Yeah, that's what I just said.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Because then we don't have the communication stuff on this, we have, so we'll
Yep.
add that to our policy, we will have that one updated.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. That takes us to 611, which would be, or 6,111, which would be new for us, and it involves classroom environment. Basically, it talks a little bit about all times teachers are expected to organize, maintain, and ensure their classroom is in a safe, orderly, and clean condition for student learning. That's something that we would expect classrooms to be anyway. That first paragraph is really kind of new for our district. The second paragraph, the district will only permit the Gow-Peters projection map or a similar cylindrical equal area projection map or the orthograph projection map for display or use in the classroom. That's legislation.
What is it?
I have I've studied geography, I have examples, and I can give you the full story if you want to hear it.
We are working with the state is going to provide us with different pieces as to what we can use, what we can't
Is
use,
this a
so,
physical map?
yes,
Here it is.
yes.
I
These are the two
see.
examples that they'll let you use, and I'm showing how the distortions are shown in these maps. It's
What are the
compared-
distortions? We'll talk later.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't really want to get home by then.
Yeah, remember who was talking about asking questions? Yeah.
Got it, got it.
But I will explain it. It is a unwise decision by the Unicap.
Yeah, and moving on. I don't want to get off on that soapbox. Okay. 6,700 firearms, as you know, as a result of LB 1329. This was Senator Brewer's bill that he's been after for the last several years, changed Nebraska's laws regarding firearms on school grounds. Some of these changes involve changes to the state statute's wording. Other changes are more substantive and allow certain schools to allow more firearms at school. This policy, I would highly recommend that you read through and make sure that you fully agree with it. it does change a little bit of who can carry a firearm in your school. I'm not necessarily opposed to some of these people, but it also poses other questions that you as a board need to be comfortable with as you approve this policy. And if you have questions about, the policy is written from a legal standpoint, so it is legal. It's been approved by our school lawyer for our school. If you have things about, when you read it, if you have questions about certain things or you're not comfortable with certain things, please let me know, and we can run those questions by legal counsel as well. But I wanted you to see the full policy.
Can you comment even briefly on what we have a choice in and what's locked in? Briefly, then.
Yeah, most of this is locked in. I think what's there is locked in. I think it's if you want to allow any other type of firearm carry that's not.
To increase leniency to.
Right.
That might be possible. To make it stricter,
Yes,
probably not.
probably not. Okay. All right. That takes us to membership in school board associations. And lobbying, this is one of Senator Linehan's legislative bills, LB 287, which it really is a good thing. It kind of eased the newspaper publication requirements for board meetings, which we've run into this as a board a time or two when we've had weather that canceled the meeting and we couldn't get it in the newspaper, and so then that pushed the meeting back a little further. Now, if we're unable to timely publish a notice of a board meeting, then the board may give notice by one, posting the notice on the newspaper's website. We actually just did this. Two, posting the notice in conspicuous places within the district. So if you post it on our door, the post office, some other conspicuous places in our district, you have met the law. And with the new notice requirements, this policy will need to be revised again next winter, so we will be looking at it again in the future. But it does give us a little bit of relaxation in terms of how we post for board meetings in the event we run into situations.
It does have to be in the printed newspaper.
Correct. It can be on your website. So, one of the places that we run into it, I'm just gonna be upfront, and our newspaper is great to us, but deadlines are to get it in the Tuesday paper, because there is no Monday paper. You have to have it there by Thursday morning. And if we have something happen, whatever it might be on the front end of that, and we want to have a meeting on Wednesday or Thursday, if we don't get it there by that Thursday morning before, it doesn't make the paper in time. But we can still do that if we want to advertise it, but we can also publish it in those places and put it on our website and be in good order.
It's basically more flexibility for us.
Exactly.
I wouldn't mind making it
Does it
easier to
mean on
find.
this that they can, when they, like currently we ask them to give us their name, do they no longer have to do that, or is that just, is that we can't ask them to like, I mean, we don't do that now, identify themselves when they enter the meeting. What is the meaning, what is the rationale for that?
They don't have to identify themselves as to be admitted to the meeting. If they speak, they have to. To me, it just says to
Okay.
attend, they don't have to.
When we meet the first part of this, we always have now request public comment at every board meeting,
Mhm.
including special meetings, work sessions, so forth, so. So I I think
We
that's,
meet the
yeah.
letter of the law because we do require, we have public forum at every single meeting.
Yeah, 8346, which is 4.1.7, we already do that because we already allow public speaking at every meeting. So if we were to hold a special meeting for some reason, we would have to allow opportunity to speak, which we do, so not a big change.
I had read the current policy that gives a lot of power to the president, to which I'm not sure the president wants all that power, because then, hey, the public can come back against complaint. So having some guidance, so if you want to be president, I would suggest reviewing it and seeing, hey, does this work? And fortunately, in all the meetings that I've ever attended, it's never been an issue. And I hope it stays that way.
Yeah.
We've had a lot
You're
of
lucky.
calls.
I've heard rumors.
And, you know, even though it says at the beginning, members of the public shall be permitted to attend and speak at board meetings, it does not say that they are required to identify themselves when they do speak. Should that be in there? You know, like, members of the public will be permitted to speak, but should we say they are required to give their name and address?
It's a good
See,
question.
that's why I was asking about that first thing.
But that's to attend,
Yeah,
that's
that's
not.
to attend.
I know, but they
Yeah.
put both those,
Right.
those things in the same,
Yeah.
the first sentence is both
That's
of
probably a
those.
good question.
But I'm
for,
thinking, you know,
lawyers.
since it says up here, they're permitted to attend, but they don't have to identify.
But in
Right.
order to speak,
They do, and I think that should be clarified.
Yeah, because I don't even think in the speaking part though, it says that they have to give those, it would be nice if we added that part right
That's what
down
we're
here.
saying.
Yep.
Yeah, I think it just clarifies.
And that is in the current policies.
It is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so just taking it
And,
over and,
and also give an address with the
Yeah.
possible exception if you perceive danger.
I'm just noticing that I skipped over 8240, which is membership in school board association. We've already started doing that on our website. We identify that we are part of the Nebraska Association of School Boards, we list what the dues are, and the stance organization will list what the dues are there. So, sorry about that.
yeah.
that was pretty self-explanatory.
Yes, it was. It was short.
And 8346, we just covered, so, all of those things are, again, we will clarify the 8346 and about the identification of the person speaking. That brings us to rescinding policy 6310, textbook loans. That's being taken over by the Department of Education, so we can rescind that policy at the next board meeting.
Which is fantastic.
What's an example?
Like at St. Joseph's, they have
Oh, I
been ordering Wonders, or, no, Journey's textbooks. So every year I have to go and get their order, and then I have to submit it to the state, then we have to order it for them, then we deliver it, we have to get it back from them. We just have to make sure that we have everything, so this will be so much easier.
Cuts out the middle.
I know, what will I do? I don't know, what will I do with my free time?
If we just,
Maybe get back to other parts of my job.
if we just jump back briefly to that MAPS thing, I do have some questions as far as implementation is concerned, because the wording sounds really strict. So if you have textbooks with it, you can't use it, what do we expect from publishers?
We're not sure because we just adopted textbooks. So again, I'm waiting for guidance from the state before I do anything. It might be what we project onto the board, might be, that's where we might say we're gonna go. But I think it is very difficult. So those are the things that, yes, we are working with, but I'm waiting for guidance from the state because this could have a financial impact
Yeah, yeah.
on the district, and it's another one of those unfunded mandates that are being passed down.
With my background, I do have real issues with it, and I would be more than pleased to work with it.
Perfect. Perfect.
I will be more than excited to have you use that background knowledge to go back to the Capitol and
Yes.
explain why this is poor legislation. It is.
I told them once.
Yeah, I know you
It's
did.
up there.
I know. I don't think they got it.
No.
Um, Our plan, just so you all know, will be to educate teachers at the start of the year that these are the maps that you can use and let them know. And then textbooks, like you say, that's a great question, so we just have to look into it.
Yes, because we just purchased them, so I'm not jumping
Yeah.
to go purchase, I would rather just say we're going to project.
Okay, so we're gonna jump back up to the random drug testing policy. And essentially, as you recall, we started this discussion a year ago, in August, at the August Cal meeting of 2023. Mr. Brown had asked and about whether or not we wanted to continue the random drug testing policy. He brought some information forward and some thoughts from his standpoint of what he had seen in his first 2 years. The board requested that we put that on the September agenda. We talked about it in September, but tabled it until the October meeting. The October meeting, we had public who addressed the board on this testing practice. We tabled the discussion on the policy until we could have more members present. In November, we talked about it again. We had a motion to rescind the policy, and that motion failed. So, at that time, various discussions took place about what other options do we have? What can we do? Because we don't want it to appear that we think just doing away with random drug testing is the answer either. But we want you guys to have a healthy discussion about what direction you want us to go in regards to this. Quite frankly, it's something that Mr. Brown noticed, felt like he should bring to your attention. So we went through that. When it got to be November and to rescind it failed, we said, okay, it's November, we've got to continue the rest of the year with what we currently do. Now we're at a point where basically I see it that we have three options, correct me if I'm wrong, but I see that we have three options. One, stick with the policy we have. Two, we have worked a policy together to try and reflect some of the changes that we had discussed. And we have that policy here for you to look at tonight, and then consider in the next couple of weeks. We'll talk about it again. The third option, I think, is do you want to rescind random drug testing altogether? So,
I thought we voted, we're going to rescind
we did.
that. Okay.
You did vote that,
So
but
now you're asking us again if we want to rescind it?
well,
If we've changed our mind?
but there were changes that we had talked about making to the policy that we have made to a new policy for you to look at. And I just want you to know where we are. We can stick with what we had, we can adopt that with the changes that kind of reflect the discussion a year ago, or you still have the option to
I
rescind
just
it
don't
for the
want it
coming
to
year.
hear that, you know, Mom said no, so go ask Dad.
Yeah. No, again, if it
Get it
appears
to the
that way.
public, yeah.
Right, and if it appears that way, I apologize, that's not what we're trying to do. We're just trying to
Because I
cover
think there are
that.
people that are, I don't think you're gonna change the mind of the people that are opposed, and I don't think you're gonna change the minds of the people that are in favor of it, from the conversations I have.
Probably not.
Well, I guess when we voted on it to not rescind it, I was under the impression that you were going to try to make it more workable, you know, that there were a couple of pieces that were not working well for you. I think one of them is you have a kid who is only in sports or extracurricular activities in one semester. Do we need to continue to have them participate in drug testing the second semester? So, you know, I think it was things like that.
Yeah, it was,
Yeah.
There are details and inconsistencies in the policy that really should be addressed, even if you don't want to get rid of it.
So is this policy that you have before us, is that the revised one, or is that the old one?
It is the revised, correct?
There
Should
should be
be.
like purple text and
I don't have,
text.
mine's all black.
Yeah, mine's black and white.
There is lighter, like on page 4, which would be the back of page 2. Looks like
Oh,
there is
It's
lighter.
more
gray.
Yeah,
Instead of
yeah.
gray, is that where it's
Yeah.
at?
It didn't come out color.
No.
and the last sentence in paragraph,
Yeah.
under A and then under number 2. I see.
But again, that says each school year.
I'm gonna just add too that I had done a fair amount of research leading up to that initial vote. And I followed up with more research. And I think I have enough evidence that it can change some minds if given an opportunity. I do have just a quick summary, because back in the fall, I had like a couple dozen pages of things that I pulled out of various journals, that kind of thing. And I've just collapsed it all into just a number of bullet points and references that you can go and look at the materials. And I've got,
I don't think the general public is gonna, you can put stuff in front of them and they're not, it's not gonna make a difference.
But
I think that the general public that I spoke to views that the community has a larger issue and that is the concern.
well, I'll be glad to hand this around. I've got copies. Just take a look at it and see, see what you think. And I have another handout from a PowerPoint that I put together that says, hey, how to fool a drug test. The kids are smart these days, they can go online and they can try things that are kind of dangerous. So things have changed since we implemented policy in Michigan.
That's one of the differences. So, real quick, just to talk about some of the differences between the policy, the old policy, and some of the discussions we had around the things that we didn't like there, and what we're proposing. And so one of the things in the new policy is that, if you recall, when a student entered high school in the old policy, and their parent authorized for them to enter the pool of random drug testing, they were then in that for the next 4 years unless they were pulled out. So that was one thing, they had to be opted out by the parents. Okay. In the new policy, what we're saying is that's not gonna be a 4-year situation anymore. Every single year, students will have to opt in, their parents will have to opt in if they wanna participate. And it's for the full year.
Which I think that's a good idea, because you may have a student as a freshman participates, and then they decide they're not going to any longer, and then.
Right. Yeah,
But a student who participates in an activity will be required to opt in.
correct. That's still the same.
But they won't have to sign, so I'm just saying if Claire participates as a freshman, decides not to participate as a sophomore, I don't have to opt her out.
Correct.
I will have to opt in every single year that she participates. Okay.
And how it works is, the other thing that comes into play here is seasons, right? Because you may have a student that opts into the program at the start of the year for a fall sport, but remains in the program the whole year. But you may have a student who just plays basketball or a winter sport that really will, their opt-in form probably won't be collected from the parent or authorized from the parent till they start that season. Because they didn't participate in any fall sports. So there are some things there that just, everybody just needs to understand as we move forward with this policy that we're talking about. So what it says is, under random testing, section A, each school year, the high school principal and the activities director shall communicate with the students and parents to determine which students will be included in the pool. So that's basically the consent form. The parent, the AD and the activities, or the activities director and the high school parents will let every parent know at the start of school year, if your parent or if your student is gonna participate in an activity, they have to opt into the pool, okay?
Even if it's track in the spring, that's the only sport.
They will opt in the spring.
In the spring, not till spring. Okay.
Not till spring.
Yep, because
They won't be at the fall
Right,
parent
right.
meeting or the spring, or the winter.
so this should be in color for you. Thank you, Daniel.
Okay, so you've been on sports, you're talking all extracurricular.
Yeah, sorry, I'm talking all extracurricular activities. Okay, so that covers that change that we talked about. I think is about as thoroughly as we can.
Which I think we talked about that.
But it will,
Yeah.
it will only go until the end of that school year.
Right.
Before it rolled over to, and so theoretically, you could have a, okay.
Say that again.
No, well, you could have, like if they opted in with basketball in November, it could, if it's for a year, it could have rolled until the next October. But you're saying it will end
School year.
in May.
School year.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it'll just be easier that way.
Yeah.
The other thing that we have no records of, or that we believe has ever been implemented from the beginning of this in 2000, whenever that was, is obligation to continue support for the students who test positive during the summer. That they would be required to come in and continue taking the test during the summer. That's never happened. And so we're recommending removal of that over the summertime. That was a section that was in the previous policy we're saying, just get rid of, that was section B. Okay? And if you look at what's in front of you now, you have A and B and that's it. Okay? So we're recommending taking that out. Under testing procedures, it also says, upon the start of a student's activity, the student may be randomly tested at any time for the remainder of the school year. So everybody's clear, it's fall sport, whatever that may be, that student is in the drug pool for the entire year and can be tested for the entire year.
So they just play football and that's all they play, and they're gonna be tested all year, or could be.
Could be. They're still in the pool, the random. Now, if they're not in any other activities, there's not a lot that we can do to them. Unless we tie the penalty to something else. There are schools that do that.
Why would we leave them in the pool?
I think it's more administrative, so you're not adding, you know, I mean, okay, you play fall, okay, then if you only play football, okay, we got them in there for football. You don't do anything winter, but oh, now you're gonna come out for golf, then you gotta re-enroll. I mean, I think it's more of a, you know, to alleviate some of the paperwork.
I think it's partially that, and I think it's partially if we're saying we're gonna help the student,
Right, we're gonna do it.
let's help them the
Yeah.
whole
Right.
year.
Yeah.
Well, and don't we have something in the handbook to deal with that type of issue also?
Absolutely, if they're involved in an activity and they get,
But even if,
there are consequences that would happen with the activity.
but even if they aren't involved in an activity and you find drug use of somebody who's not participating, there are consequences.
As long as it's drug use at school, or they come intoxicated or under the influence at school, that's where we would know it. If they used the drug on Saturday, we would probably have no clue on Monday that they,
Right, and I understand that, but,
yeah,
but if there is an issue at school, there are also consequences
Yes.
in the hand.
there are, absolutely.
Then they would be subject to the code of conduct.
Yep, right.
So, just going back and recounting conversations and having notes and things and writing them down, those are the things that we felt like changing in the policy would address the topics of conversation we had last fall. Essentially, we run into the time frame now where this is policy, June is policy month, the June committee of the whole meetings, so that's why it's here in June. We have July to talk about it again, and we have August, and the random testing starts in September. So we have that time frame to discuss this and talk. But those are the changes to the policy that we would recommend. I do have, I asked Mr. Brown to gather some statistics for us on random drug testing, so I'm just gonna pass those around. So you have a clear vision of what it looked like for the past year. Under the previous policy, we tested 10 kids a month from September through April. In the past 3 years, we have tested 240 students. Some students have been tested more than once since it's random. So that's the other part of it.
No different than doing a random drug test for any other employer out there in Beatrice.
Exactly.
City of Beatrice, you could be pulled 3 times in a row.
Exactly.
You could miss it for 3 years.
Yeah.
That's why it's called random.
Right,
Absolutely.
right, exactly. I mean, it is what it is.
In the past 3 years, we've had 8 students test positive. 5 of those students weren't involved in any activities when they tested positives, and they had not opted out of the program. 2 of those students tested positive outside of their season. 1 of those students tested positive during their season but was injured, so they were inactive. 0 students missed any activities due to testing positive because it happened after their season and they only participated in 1 activity. 1 student missed 6 weeks of an activity because they were caught with a THC vape a second time during the school year. Coincidentally, this student tested negative during random drug testing. A total of 15 weeks of suspensions were given out for students who were caught with vapes in the past 3 years who were involved in activities. And then the cost to add nicotine will increase the cost to $55 per student if we wanted to do that.
Those caught with vapes, how much of that was with vape detectors? Is that a lot?
Predominantly, I don't know exactly, but I would say most of it.
Those vape detectors have been
Pretty good.
a good addition into our bathrooms.
And they're very sensitive.
Because they also catch fights, I mean, they also catch loud voices, they catch a lot of different things, it just is not that big.
What's the cost to those vape detectors? Do you have an idea?
There was the cost to install them, and I don't remember what the cost was, we utilized ESSER funds to pay for
Okay.
that. So there was the cost to install them, but I don't remember, and I don't think that there's an upkeep cost, I think we would have to replace when they need to be replaced.
Jamie, the other thing I remember talking about is what we are testing for. There was like, what we are not testing for certain things. I can't remember what they were.
One of the things.
Besides nicotine.
Right.
Alcohol.
Alcohol was one of them,
Mhm.
and there was one other one.
Is it marijuana?
It's, this one says alcohol, students, substances included for testing. Substances that student participants may be randomly tested for. It does say alcohol. Amphetamines, cannabinoids, cocaine, opiates, and PCP and other substances,
Barbiturates.
barbiturates, steroids.
Benzodiazepines.
But didn't they say like alcohol, like you drink on the weekend, it's typically out of their system at the time?
Yes.
It's done to your own.
Yes.
And I think you would probably find, in looking through some of this information that Charles provided on how students can cheat a random drug test, you'll find that alcohol is one of the easier ones, flush from your system. But I think, yeah, so all that information is there. We will gladly entertain any questions that you have. Those are the recommended changes that we came up with on the basis of the conversations that we had. So in the next meeting or two, we can talk through more of this. Eventually, we'll come to a vote as to adopt this policy. If that's what you want to do, keep the old one. You're gonna just have to give us direction.
I have one more question. What is currently being done in the schools to promote, hey, good, healthy lifestyles and to stay away from drugs, that kind of thing? Are there programs currently in place?
I would say all of our physical health curriculum, because they tie into health components, all of those pieces are very much so about staying drug-free, and that runs kindergarten through really your 9th grade year is where we see the majority of our students take health. So that is a curriculum that is covered constantly with kiddos. The other things that we do is the Youth Frontiers does have a, the drug-free component. We actually were able to get a grant through, get a $3,000 grant to help pay for Youth Frontiers.
That's a big one. That program is a lot about.
Challenging kids to stand up and to say no and have the courage to say no and have the courage to look at other people and say no. Our counselors do a lot with drug use, and they tie a lot back to that mental health side of it too. So the social emotional learning, drug use comes into play with that. So I will tell you, and our teachers do a great job adding in those components too as well when they have the chance, especially when you look at English language arts. A lot of the texts that we sometimes read bring up substance abuse and poor decision making, and so consequences that may have happened. So there are ways that we tie it in naturally, but it would be your health curriculum, your counseling curriculum, and then the Youth Frontiers are.
Which then looks to me, again, from the reading and research I've done and came up with a bunch of examples, these are the programs that work. So really pleased to see that. So it's not as though we abandon this, it's like we're giving up on
Exactly.
these students. That's, it'll make a difference, just knowing that. Thanks.
Okay.
We're heading into substitute pay now.
We do, and basically you heard about it in the substitute handbook discussion, so we can jump right over it.
So you're gonna give us a tiny update?
I am, a very tiny update. Just a reminder that the July board meeting will include 3 hearings prior to the board meeting, so and those hearings don't take very long, so we'll try and gauge how much time we need, but usually we start about 15 minutes before. Those are required hearings, so it's a formality. Also, just a reminder that the 4th being on Thursday will mean that the agenda probably won't come out until late Friday afternoon. So we'll try and get and I want you to have a heads up. We will have the purchase of a new oven on that for the high school because
Approximately $46,000.
we need a new oven and we gotta have it to cook with.
Yes,
So
we do.
just so you know, that will be on there. I do want to share some exciting news with you. We've been in communication with a representative from Afton Energy. And Afton is a business designing, procuring, consulting, developing, financing, managing, and coordinating the sale, purchase, and funding of renewable and energy efficiency products and systems. Basically, Afton is a secondary company that can help us go out and try and collect government rebates on our new geothermal system at the elementary. So, our geothermal system is eligible for that grant opportunity. We're on kind of a tight time frame. It has to be, all the paperwork has to be filled out and turned in by the end of our budget cycle. So that's August 31st. A 30% base credit is guaranteed, and there's a 10% bonus credit for domestically used content if possible. So when you're talking about a $1.8 million geothermal system, you're talking about a pretty nice chunk of money if it meets all those requirements. And from the very basic discussions and meetings we've had via Zoom call, Danielle was on those with me, they feel very confident that we're gonna meet those 30% and 10% thresholds, which would be great. They anticipate, and these are conservative numbers, that somewhere between a $540,000 to a $720,000 rebate could happen. So that's terrific.
That is hot news.
That is, yeah. And credit to BCDM, our architect and houseman, they heard about this, they jumped on it knowing our situation, contacted us immediately. We met with the representative from Afton Energy via Zoom call. They're sending a person out tomorrow to collect some more documentation so we can move forward with this. Now, how it works, there's no fee for us, but there's a 12% collection on whatever award we would receive from the grant itself. So and I think it's worth it. I mean, so I plan on signing and following through with that agreement, and getting that going. Just keep your fingers crossed. But that was very exciting news. Some important dates that we will send out to you. You don't have to worry about writing these down. We've just kind of finally nailed everything down. And Missy, if I missed something, jump in. But we wanted you to know about them. We've been working. The building will be done in 2 weeks. So with that said, if you guys want to, we can try and get you through.
And I'm out there, I mean,
Yeah,
I'm not temporary out there, but I'm out there all the time, so if you're there and give me a holler, I'd be,
Ryan wants to come.
oh,
I'm
you
there
probably
all day.
needs to for the bank.
I'm there tomorrow, all day tomorrow, so I'm happy to walk, I mean, you have my number.
I just had him do, he wanted to know, separate from the public and
Yeah,
brunch and all that.
he's got to do that inspection thing. So for the public, here's the dates that we've nailed down and the things that we're going to do. On July 27th, we already have the Mason's Cornerstone ceremony. You've heard about that in the afternoon. That morning, we are going to have a first look donors tour for those people that have donated money to the project. They
That make the donor wall.
that make the donor wall, correct, thank you. We will gather at Stone Hollow. We'll have kind of a breakfast thing down there for them. We will provide a bus transportation. They'll load on the bus, we'll drive them out. We'll be giving tours out there. The bus will come back, pick up the next group, and we'll just cycle that way that morning. Then in the afternoon, we have the Mason's Cornerstone. You, by the way, are invited to all of these things as well. The week of August 12th and 13th, that's the week before elementary school starts, or the week that it does start. We'll be working to have family sneak peek nights, those 2 nights, and
Monday, Tuesday are sneak peeks. and
Yep.
Then Wednesday would be the official grand opening of the school,
Wednesday night,
the
August
14th.
14th. So, again, we'll send all that out to you. We are in the process of designing what that grand opening ceremony will look like, but obviously, we'd love to have all of you there if you can. And I think that concludes my report, but some exciting stuff going on, and it's just crazy. The building Houseman's done a fabulous job, and we're just knocking on the door, being done. We got some final things to take care
But
of.
just because the building's done doesn't mean there's occupancy and everything yet. The furniture still has to come in, so staff aren't gonna be in 2 weeks, because our furniture people will come in, so they'll be, I just don't want someone to hear that and think, yes, teachers are in 2 weeks. So
Right,
there's more
right.
work to be done
Yes.
before that, but everyone's working very fast and very well together, that hopefully that date continues to move closer and closer.
Yes.
I was there today and I called Jason at about what time, 1 o'clock? I just had a huge smile on my face. I mean, what we're able to do for staff, just even our maintenance in there working together, it's, thank you for all of your hard work for this, because it's gonna be amazing.
It is.
Now we have a presentation, a video.
All right,
You can spend more time on those announcements about money coming back to the district. Yeah, okay.
you just start
Starting off with that.
reading them on, yeah, start off with that. Yeah, it'd be nice to keep them coming.
This is the proper time for public questions and comments on any topic. Since I don't think we have any public, we'll just move on. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I move that the Board of Education of District 15 adjourn.
Have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?